Chapter 2 After 20 Years by O. Henry.
The story is about an appointment between two friends. What is special about this appointment? The appointment was made 20 years back. Both the friends remember it and try to keep it. They came to the appointed place at the appointment time. At one point, the narrator calls this appointment an uncertain appointment. Do you agree with him? Why? Yes, it was uncertain. 20 years is a long time, and it was not certain if the friend remembered the appointment. They didn't even know whether both of them were alive or not. Bob calls his friend Jimmy Wells the finest chap in the world, and the truest and staunchest man in the world. Does Jimmy Wells justify this description? Pick sentences from the story to support your opinion. Yes, Jimmy does justify the terms finest and staunchest used by his friend, Bob. Jimmy, besides being a good friend, was an honest and sincere policeman too. He was finest man as he did not arrest his friend himself. A few sentences from the story to illustrate this are as follows. I'll give him half an hour at least. If Jimmy is alive on Earth, he'll be here on time. But I know Jimmy will meet me here if he's alive, for he always was the truest, staunchest old chap in the world. Somehow I couldn't do it myself, so I went around and got a plainclothes man to do the job. Why do you think the Chicago police had been looking for Bob, whom they had nicknamed Silky Bob? Pick sentences from the story that show the kind of life Bob had led in the West. The Chicago police had been looking for Bob, perhaps for theft or robbery. He had been given nicknamed Silky Bob, as he must have kept eluding them for a long time. O. Henry's stories are known for their surprise ending. What is the surprise at the end of this story? The surprise at the end of the story is that the friend who greeted Bob 20 minutes after 10 was actually a policeman who had been tipped off by Jimmy Wells. Jimmy himself was in surprise when he discovered that Bob was none other than the much-wanted criminal, Silky Bob, when Bob struck a match and lit his cigar. Do you think Jimmy Wells' colleague played his role well? Using words and phrases from the story, explain how he managed to fool Bob. Jimmy's colleague shook his hand and talked to him in a familiar tone. When Bob remarked that the Jimmy he knew was a few inches shorter, he answered that he grew a bit after 20. Sentences from the story that illustrate this. A tall man in a long overcoat, with collar turned up to his ears, hurries across from the opposite side of the street. The old restaurant's gone, Bob. Oh, I grew a bit after I was 20. Choose the correct options. A. You bet. I hope Jimmy has done half as well. He was a kind of plodder though, good fellow as he was. Bob means that his friend Jimmy Wells worked slowly and steadily but without imagination. 20 years later, Jimmy proved Bob's assessment about him to be quite incorrect because he caught Silky Bob unawares and got him arrested. You've changed a lot, Jimmy. I always thought you were 2 or 3 inches shorter. These words of Bob indicate that he had an inkling that something was wrong but could not put his finger on it. Here are some statements about the story you have just read. Take the ones that you feel are correct. Correct the incorrect ones. Jimmy Wells was the policeman on the beat the night Bob had to meet his friend. Jimmy was smart, alert and active while on duty. According to Bob, Jimmy was an imaginative and adventurous young man. Bob felt that life in the West threw you into a routine that made you dull. Jimmy realized that Bob was not aware of his being tracked, so he could take the risk of not arresting him immediately. In the end, Jimmy was outwitted by Bob. There is an air of mystery about the events of the night. Do you think the weather too plays a part in heightening the mystery? There was an air of mystery about the events occurring at night. The weather too played a part in heightening the mystery. The drizzle and the wind helped to blur the image of the person approaching Bob. Had it been a clear day, Bob might have been able to make out the difference much earlier and perhaps run away. Sometimes we have to make difficult choices in life. If you had been in Jimmy Wells' place, how would you have dealt with your feelings about your old friend on the one hand, and your sense of duty and responsibility as a law-abiding citizen on the other? Would you have taken the same decision that policeman Wells took? Jimmy Wells was a hard-working and honest man. He had the sensitivity not to arrest his friend who had come all the way to meet him. It is a difficult decision to deal with your feelings about your old friend the one hand and your sense of responsibility on the other. Putting the duty over friendship is difficult yet a logical decision for a policeman.